Now, two things I want to ask. First one, I mean, we've given an awful lot of spoilers, but about the ending, wouldn't it have been better for Sparky to have lived, or for Sparky to have just remained dead?
Well, here's the thing. It could have, in this instance, it could have worked either way.
Yeah.
In the short, they just sort of, get together and they're like, oh, hey, let's resurrect the dog. And they're like, it happens. And you get a happy ending. Whereas in this one, where we talk about, Victor not being able to cope with the loss of his dog, and at the end of this, they still do the same thing where they hook all the cars up to Sparky, and at first it doesn't work.
I know, and I thought, and at first I thought, well, wait,
and then. Yeah,
at first I thought it was going to be like, this is actually kind of a mature ending.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, because even, you get that minute or so before everything sort of works out, where Victor truly, believes that he's not coming back, and he's able to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though Sparky does wind up coming back at the end, it's still like, okay, well, we see he can actually, he's willing to part with him. He's willing to say, okay, I know you're lost here, but I can keep you in my heart. And, that still keeps that mature ending. It's sort of like with the Muppets, the new Muppets movie.
Yeah, but the difference between that movie and Frankenweenie is that with Frankenweenie, it does, and I agree with what you're saying, is that, it had a mature ending, but then, it brought him back to life. Yeah. It still brought him back to life anyway, but it's still,
Yeah, but
at least he learned his lesson and he coped with it. Unlike with the Muppets, where it's just like, all right, it did pass off as a mature ending, but then it just throwed in one last shtick, just like boom.
Yeah, but in all honesty, that was during the credits, so essentially they had already pretty much established that we are willing to accept this loss, and then they go out and see that everybody still, is just crowded around. But that's a different movie entirely.
Yes,
we're not here to talk about that.
No.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is also Disney. They have to tack on a happy ending for everything.
Yeah, no, they did that with the Muppets as well.
Yeah, it's in their contract,
There is also one other question. Now, I know you said, we talked before the movie, saying that you saw ParaNorman. Mm-hmm. I wanted to compare this movie because this is one of those instances in movie season where you get two movies that come out shortly around the same time that kind of have like a similar style. The stop motion classic horror / kids film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I may, before you start that discussion, isn't ParaNorman technically made by some of the people who made Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yes, it is, because it's the same. Because it's also the same people who also made Coraline, and I liked Coraline.
Exactly. Yep.
But, well, with that, what did you thought was better, ParaNorman or Frankenweenie, and why?
Frankenweenie by far, because with ParaNorman, I mean, here's my problem with ParaNorman. Except for like what was it? Except for, like, by the midway point, everything was pretty much cliched. Like, you had a kid who was weird, he was bullied by people, considered an outcast, hated on by his family, blah, 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 blah. He learns that, about, like, the supernatural thing. Everything goes to shit. He tries to tell people, they don't believe him. The twist is that, once, like, the zombies, awaken and go into the townspeople, because this is the modern age, see the zombies are like, let's kill him! So, and then from there, it's like, a few minor things, like, I won't spoil it, because, we're not here to talk about that, but, But the thing, like, with Frankenweenie is that they basically took an existing film and then just built upon that. And, you know, they added in, you know, a lot of characterization, a lot of, like, new extra things that, like, at first seem cliche, but then there's, like, a twist, and then, you know, like, it, like, makes you think differently. And, like, I actually found myself caring a lot more about the characters in Frankenweenie than I did in ParaNorman. I
agree with you on that, especially because that was the one problem I had with ParaNorman. I liked ParaNorman. I thought it had a good story, except just the characters what bogged it down. Because I remember reading when you saw ParaNorman on Facebook and saying that the characters were one-dimensional, and looking back on that, it's like, yeah, they are kind of one-dimensional, and that's what. And that also brings up with what you just said about, you know, you caring for the characters more in Frankenweenie, because that's true. I actually did care more for especially more for Victor and, you know, all the other characters.
Yeah, because, like, even though, like I said, I saw the original, so I knew what was going to happen and everything, but even when I saw the dog die and everything, like, I felt genuinely upset, you know, and I was close to crying at one point. I never really felt that in ParaNorman. Like, there was, like, one scene where he confronts the witch that was pretty heart-wrenching.
That was done very well.
Yeah, but that's, like, the only thing about it. Whereas in Frankenweenie, it's consistent throughout the whole film. Mm-hmm. Like, you see the relationship between him and his dog, how much they mean to each other. You see Victor as he starts off, you know, as, you know, a typical person does when they first deal with death, you know, denial, anger, rationalizing, sadness, and then acceptance. And you even see some of it with Sparky, his dog, because at one point he realizes that, you know, yeah, he's alive, but he can't really live. He has to be kept a secret. And at one point he actually sees himself in the mirror, freaks himself out, and then he ends up running away back to the graveyard where his grave is, and he actually stays there. Like, he wants to be dead again, because really, what else is there for him in the living world, you know, aside from his boy? And even then, that really isn't enough when you think about it, especially for a dog.
Yeah, really.
Because, like, you can't run and play, you can't eat, you can't drink, you can't take a shit whenever you want to, so...
You can't really experience love the same way.
Yeah, that's why with the ending, like, I found myself wondering, you know, and actually hoping that they wouldn't bring him back. That, you know, Victor would realize, you know, what kind of life could I give him if I just brought him back, you know? It's pretty much just, you know, rejuicing him with electricity for probably forever until he dies.
For what?
Yeah, so, you know, the dog kind of lives a meaningless existence. So, but... I don't know, like, the way they did it, though, because, you know, again, you know, Victor goes through the whole thing where he actually accepts, you know, it's like, it's okay if you don't want to come back, you know, I want you to be happy, and, you know, I don't want you to suffer anymore. But I guess the dog's love for his owner was just so strong that he, despite, you know, having an afterlife potentially full of happiness, he instead chose his boy. So, that was I felt that was, you know...
Very touching.
Very touching.
Oh, yeah.
And hence, that's why I believe that Frankenweenie is a lot better than ParaNorman, just because of the emotional development and everything between the characters and such.
Yes, there was definitely a lot more emotional development in Tim Burton with a lot of his films. Films that go that route. Like, there's a couple others, like Big Fish is another movie that comes to mind when I think about that. Yeah, I like that movie too. Where there's definitely an emotional impact throughout the entire film. With ParaNorman, it felt more like it felt more very rigid. Like, you know, it's like oh, we've seen this a billion times before. Oh, the kid who's, you know, he's being picked on because he's weird, and it's like, you know, and then oh,
it was more like they were trying to put a twist on an old story, and, you know, they kind of did it well with, you know, like, going the unexpected route, and then, you know, adding in, like, that personal moment later on with the witch. But I didn't think that was enough, especially since, like, aside from Norman, you know, who kind of gets a bit of an arc throughout the story, you know, he realizes that he can't do things alone. Everyone else, like I said, they just have one personality, and it never changes.
I know, they just kind of go along for the ride. The story could have been I mean, that story could have been a little bit more polished, but that's a whole other discussion. Overall, I would recommend this movie.
I love this movie.
It's definitely, it's nice to see that the short fleshed out and, given a lot more characterization. I don't know if I would say to bring your kids to it unless you want to scare the shit out of them.
I don't know. I mean,
I think kids could handle it if they're prepared.
I saw kids watch Coraline. I thought Coraline had more scary moments than Frankenweenie.
Those parts were terrifying.
Yeah, and I saw that in 3D also.
Yeah, I saw that.
Me too. But no, it's a definite watch. And I see it becoming a really popular Halloween classic in the future.
Indeed.
This probably ranks up there with Nightmare Before Christmas, and actually I think it goes beyond Nightmare Before Christmas. In terms of all the emotional development that's in it, and Nightmare Before Christmas kind of lacks that. Mm-hmm. So definitely my approval. Go see Frankenweenie.
Yes, Crazy Crew approves.
Just if you have sensitive kids, though, just test it yourself first before you take them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So I guess this wraps up for our movie vlog for this week.
So we plan to do this a lot more. Any big movie that all of us are interested in seeing, we'll definitely try to find a time and go see it. If you have any recommendations for a movie you want us to go see, leave it in the comments or something, and we'll see what we can do about going to see it and trying to do a reasonable review of it.
And we'll try and get as many people, the rest of Crazy Crew over here as much as possible.
Yep. In the meantime, I'm Cat T Critic.
I'm Y2 Staller.
And I'm One Sat Morn.
And this is from Crazy Crew Productions, brought to you by White Castle, our sponsor right here. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye!
Take care, everyone.